It's 5 p.m. across India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Global, bringing you all the day's big stories from across India and the world. With me today from London is my colleague, Ollie Barrett. Ollie, it's good to see you.
You too, Shubhendu. It is 11:30 a.m. here in the UK, 12:30 p.m. across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, hopes for humanitarian pauses in Gaza, a peace forum in Paris, and a row between China and the Philippines. First, the headlines.
Foreign and Defence Ministers of India and the United States hold annual 2+2 Ministerial Dialogue in New Delhi, discuss host of issues from critical technology to the Indo-Pacific.
Is today in excess of 200 billion US dollars. FDI is rising in both directions. 270,000 Indian students study in the United States.
World leaders gather in France for Paris Peace Forum, an annual assembly to deliberate on contemporary global issues. US says Israel agrees to a 4-hour daily pause in fighting in northern Gaza to allow civilians to flee to safety. India and the US bilateral ties have seen a growing convergence of strategic interest and enhanced defence, security and intelligence cooperation, says India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh at the 5th edition of India-US 2+2 Ministerial Dialogue on Friday. He further added that India and United States defence relations have evolved into strategic partnership characterised by mutual trust.
The India-US defence relationship has evolved into a strategic partnership characterized by mutual trust, shared values, and a growing recognition of common interests in maintaining regional and global security. We increasingly find ourselves in agreement on strategic issues, including countering China's aggression, promoting a free and open Indo-Pacific, and addressing regional security challenges.
And US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said India-US have taken tremendous strides in defense partnership over the past year. He also said militaries are conducting increasingly complex exercises and building greater interoperability across all domains.
Our militaries are conducting increasingly complex exercises and building greater interoperability across all domains. So I look forward to discussing all these topics with you today. And as we take stock of our accomplishments, I'm glad that we will also discuss new ways to further strengthen the major defense partnership.
And the Indian Ministry of External Affairs detailed the outcome of the 5th India-US 2+2 Ministerial Dialogue. India's Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra said both sides made a comprehensive review of bilateral relations and also discussed multiple partnerships.
We discussed of multiple partnerships, the trade and investment partnership, the technology partnership, partnerships relating to the emerging area of critical and emerging technologies, value chain and supply chain securitization of different products and services, partnership in the field of space, our continuing engagement in the field of mineral securities through the Mineral Security Partnership Framework, our common efforts in combating terrorism. These all and much more formed part of the overview of bilateral relationship that was undertaken by the principals earlier in the 2+2 dialogue.
And Quatra also said today's meeting was indicative of enduring commitment that both nations have, and they reaffirmed their mutual goals and objectives.
Dialogue has actually helped both India and the US to energize the multifaceted India-US cooperation and reaffirmed our partnership, the objectives and the goals inherent in it. We are grateful to the principals for guiding our efforts to elevate the India-US relations.
And DD India correspondent Akshay Dongare joins us from New Delhi with more on this crucial engagement. Akshay, how does this edition of 2+2 dialogue take forward what the leaders hail as an enduring commitment to India-US partnership?
Well, this is in fact an excellent platform where the leaders from the two countries can annually meet. They can discuss, update the commitment that have been made in the previous engagements. In fact, this year, as far as the issues that pertain to extreme importance to these two countries are concerned, they were discussed, but also as far as the earlier engagements, earlier commitments are concerned of the previous meetings of the 2+2 ministerial level dialogue, they were discussed as well. So the leaders, especially of the Defense Ministry of India, the Foreign Ministry of India, and the State Secretary of the US, as well as the Defense Secretary of the US, they can come and sit together and discuss these issues as far as the issues that concern both of these two nations, be it the Indo-Pacific region, be it the Ukraine war that has been going on, the Hamas-Israel conflict that has emerged in Middle East that threatens to destabilize the region. That is of key importance to these two countries. They came together, sat, discussed all of these issues, tried to find solutions to these issues, tried to find synergy as far as the two nations are concerned. These are two largest democracies who are focusing on interoperability, who are focusing on cooperation, both economic and military cooperation. And as far as the century is concerned, that many have hailed as a century that can be of Indo-US partnership, if these two countries can actually benefit from the potential that these two countries have, is great. So that is what these two nations are thriving for, and this is what took place today. There was an open door meeting, there was a closed door meeting where all kind of issues that are of concern to these two nations were discussed, deliberated upon, and they will be followed up in the next meeting when it takes place next year.
Akshay, thank you for joining us with those inputs. And as the conflict between Israel and Gaza continues, there is a greater possibility of humanitarian pauses in the days ahead. Oli Bharat is in London, gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Oli, over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Shubhendu. Yes, that focus on the possibility of humanitarian pauses over the coming days came after the White House said that Israel had agreed to that 4-hour daily pauses in fighting in northern Gaza to allow civilians to flee and humanitarian aid in. But the United Nations says any halt to fighting in Gaza would need to be coordinated with the organization.
As the Israel-Hamas conflict entered its second month, White House on Thursday said that Israel has agreed to pause operations in self-defense in northern Gaza for 4 hours a day. The pauses would allow people to flee along 2 humanitarian corridors and will be announced 3 hours in advance.
There will be 2 humanitarian corridors allowing people to flee the areas of hostilities in the northern part of Gaza. The first such corridor, open between 4 and 5 hours every day for the past few days, has already enabled many thousands of people to reach safer areas. The second route along the coastal road will enable many more thousands to reach safer areas in the south.
US President Joe Biden's administration said that it has secured a second pathway for civilians to flee fighting, and also that humanitarian pauses in Gaza aim to get up 158 trucks daily to increase the flow of food, water, and medicine into the region. The United Nations has said that any halt to fighting between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip for humanitarian purposes would need to be coordinated with the United Nations.
Well, we've just seen the press reports not long ago. I mean, how any such halt in the fighting and how it would work for humanitarian purposes would need to be coordinated with the United Nations, especially on the issue of timings and location. And obviously, in order for this to be done safely for humanitarian purposes, it would have to be agreed with all parties to the conflict to be truly effective.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Thursday that his country does not seek to govern Gaza after its war against Hamas, even as the army will continue its offensive until Hamas is eradicated. India once again strongly condemned the horrific attack on Israel, urged the need for zero tolerance for terrorism, and called for immediate and unconditional release of hostages.
Well, Turkey has sent a ship with medical supplies and generators as aid to Gaza. The country has previously sent cargo planes carrying relief material. Meanwhile, Israel says that videos released by Hamas on Thursday of 2 hostages are a sign of life, but called them a part of their captors' campaign of psychological warfare.
של חנה ויגיל היקרים מתוך רצועת עזה. אנחנו מחבקים אותם ואת המשפחות שלהם ואומרים להם ולכל המשפחות של החטופים, והחטופים הם שומעים אותי. אנחנו לא החמצנו אף הזדמנות ואנחנו לא נחמיץ אף הזדמנות באשר היא להשבת חטופים. צה"ל פועל יחד עם יתר הארגונים הביטחוניים מסביב לשעון במאמץ עליון, מודיעיני, מבצעי, אזרחי, כל...
World leaders are gathering at the Palais Brongniart for the opening ceremony of the Paris Peace Forum. French President Emmanuel Macron, European Council President Charles Michel, and former New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, among others, are at the opening of the forum. Delegates from over 50 nations are attending the annual assembly to discuss contemporary global issues. And DD India's Rebecca Bundan joins me live now from Paris. Rebecca, lots to discuss.
Yes, absolutely. This Paris Peace Forum comes against the backdrop of so many global challenges, including, of course, the Israel-Hamas conflict now, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, rising tensions between the United States and China. And the Paris Peace Forum is really focused on trying to promote good governance. And there are a lot of key themes that are being discussed here, including peace and security, climate change, the rise of technology, and particularly regulation around the use of artificial intelligence. That's a topic that's being very widely discussed at this forum, and other matters including migration, poverty. And this forum is gathering together political leaders, including, of course, French President Emmanuel Macron. We're also seeing Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, and, for example, the World Bank chief, Ajay Banga. All these leaders and business figures, international organizations coming together to really discuss these key topics as the world is facing so many major challenges at this point in time.
And Rebecca, given all of that, what can the forum actually achieve?
Well, what analysts say is that expectations have to be managed in terms of what a forum like this can achieve. And they say we shouldn't really expect any major breakthroughs as such. However, they do say that this is a really important forum and a platform for these topics to be discussed, and hopefully to try to promote cooperation between the political sphere, the business world, and civil society. And on the sidelines of the Paris Peace Forum, we've also seen on Thursday there was a conference for humanitarian aid for Gaza taking place, and there's also been this summit on poles and glaciers and the impact that global warming is having on those fragile environments. And that's expected to result in a call for action for more to be done to try to protect these environments. So that's seen as a positive development that's likely to come through from the conference, as climate change is one of the major focuses for the event.
DD India's Rebecca Bundan, live in Paris. Thank you. Next to Portugal, where President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa has called for an election on the 10th of March. The announcement came after the Socialist Prime Minister Antonio Costa offered his resignation following the arrest of his chief of staff as part of an anti-corruption investigation. President Rebelo said the government will function for now, but that an election is needed to provide clarity and direction for the Portuguese people.
I have been called to decide on the scenario created by the government, the consequence of the Prime Minister's resignation. I have decided for the dissolution of Parliament and called elections to March 10, 2024.
In Spain, an agreement between the Socialist Party and Catalonia's Junts Party to back the acting Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's bid for another term is being contested by many. But for the Socialists, it is a possibility of retaining power. Trent Murray reports.
Well, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has sealed another term in office, but he has paid a very big political price. The centre-left incumbent has spent the past 15 weeks in torturous negotiations with a number of smaller parties to try and gain a majority, and it appears he has been able to do that, but with the backing of one controversial group. They are the Catalan separatists, a party whose very existence in Parliament is all based on trying to gain independence for their region of Catalonia. The price that Pedro Sanchez has paid for their support is a new law that will give a blanket amnesty to 7 political leaders that were involved in a failed independence referendum back in the year 2017. They held that referendum to try and break away from Spain, but the country's government and court said it was illegal, and the plotters of the referendum were subsequently arrested. They will now be freed, it would appear, as part of this deal for Pedro Sanchez to get another term in office. And while this will be good news for him, many analysts are questioning just how good it is for Spain's political stability, having a party in government that wants to essentially break up the country and have a part of it separated. We know the opposition has been very critical of this move. They, in fact, won more votes than Pedro Sanchez's party, but they just were not able to get to that crucial 50% mark in order to try and form a coalition. We know that this matters as well, not just to Spaniards, but to Europe as a whole. Spain is the European Union's 4th largest population, 4th largest economy. Frankly speaking, what happens there matters to the other 26 members of the EU. And of course, there is just opposition to this within the country. We do expect major protests to take place this coming Sunday, with the main one at the headquarters of Pedro Sanchez's left-wing party. Trent Murray for DD India, Berlin.
Now, as Asian leaders prepare to arrive in the US city of San Francisco for next week's APEC Summit, one of the questions is whether there will be new announcements on the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Launched last year, the IPEF included non-APEC members India and Fiji. It's seen as an attempt to counter Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific. Ira Spitzer reports from San Francisco.
Negotiators are reportedly working furiously behind the scenes to try and be able to show some meaningful progress when leaders from Asia and the Americas gather next week in San Francisco for the APEC Summit. The Biden administration launched the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, known as IPEF, last year, and it's widely seen as an attempt to counter Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific. IPEF has 4 so-called pillars: trade, supply chain resilience, infrastructure and clean energy, and tax and anti-corruption measures. It has 14 founding members, including India, although India doesn't participate in the trade portion. While the agreement on supply chain resilience was completed in May, the other pieces have been more difficult. According to reports, agreeing on labor and environmental standards has been tricky, and earlier this week, the U.S. suspended talks on some digital trade regulations out of concern that those would limit the country's ability to enact still tougher technology regulations here. Despite India not being an APEC member, Indian officials will be in San Francisco for the IPEF meeting, taking place concurrently with the APEC event. Ira Spitzer reporting in San Francisco for DD India.
The Philippines has criticized China's coast guards, accusing them of unprovoked acts, including using a water cannon against one of its boats to disrupt a resupply mission in the South China Sea. The Philippines says China's actions endangered lives and also cast doubt on its sincerity for peaceful dialogue. And so in response, Shibendu, China's Coast Guard claimed that the Philippines entered Chinese waters without permission. Back to you in the studio.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ollie, for getting us those updates. And we're heading for a short break, but still to come on DD India Global. UK to add India to list of safe states. That means asylum seekers who enter UK illegally will be deemed inadmissible. Jared Leto scales New York's iconic Empire State Building to announce his band 30 Seconds to Mars.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. The United Kingdom government is going to add India to the list of safe states, which would speed up process of returning people who have travelled from India illegally. With this addition, all asylum claims from Indian nationals who arrive on small boats or illegally on other routes will be deemed inadmissible. There will be no appeals and they will be sent back. A UK Home Ministry statement said, besides India, Georgia is also added to the list of safe states. The decision will mark another step in the delivery of Illegal Migration Act 2023 and its plans to stop the boats. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. The Russian government has told its fuel producers to prepare for the scrapping of all remaining restrictions on the export of diesel and gasoline. The ban will be lifted once the domestic market stabilizes. Restrictions were slightly eased on October 6th to allow the export of diesel by pipeline, but prevented the export of gasoline. In a London High Court ruling, Prince Harry, singer Elton John, and 5 other high-profile British figures have their lawsuit against the publisher of the Daily Mail paper. The 5 claimants have accused Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday of phone hacking and other serious privacy breaches dating back 30 years. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese signed a bilateral agreement with island nation Tuvalu today. The pact covers climate change, security and human mobility. It also aims at countering China's influence in the Pacific. Oscar-winning actor and singer Jared Leto scaled the New York's iconic Empire State Building to announce his band 30 Seconds to Mars world tour. Leto climbed the famous star using a rope and a harness. 30 Seconds to Mars Massive Seasons 2024 world tour is the band's first headline tour in 5 years. And India celebrates the festival of Dhanteras on Friday that officially marks the beginning of Diwali, the festival of lights.
India's biggest festival, Diwali, kicks off from Friday. Dhanteras, also known as Dhantriyodashi, originates from 2 words, Dhan, which means wealth, and Teras, which means 13th. This festival is celebrated on the 13th lunar day of Krishna Paksh of the Hindu calendar. Hinduism is the largest religion in India. Dhanteras marks the beginning of the 5-day-long Diwali festivities. According to Hindu mythology, those who offer prayers to Lord Dhanvantri are relieved from diseases and sufferings. It is also believed purchasing new cutlery and items made of gold or silver on this day also bring good fortune and fight against bad luck and negative energy.
गिफ्ट पर्पस के लिए भी है और जो अपने लिए ले रही हूँ वो इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए है, फ्यूचर के लिए। धनतेरस पर हमारे इसे शुभ माना जाता है कि गोल्ड लेना तो मस्ट है, तो मैं एवरी धनतेरस आती हूँ और ज्वेलरी बाय करती हूँ।
गोल्ड एक डुअल पर्पस चीज़ है, आज आप इस्तेमाल भी करते हैं और इन्वेस्टमेंट भी है।
According to Indian scriptures, Dhanvantri is considered the god of Ayurveda, an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. This divine figure imparts the profound wisdom of Ayurveda for the well-being of humanity. Munmun Bhattacharya's report for DD India.
And that's all for this edition of DD India Global. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us online at ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Global. Namaskar.
A platform for the developing world, amplifying the voice of the Global South with a focus on the growing economies, resolving the conflicts, showcasing the culture, tradition, heritage and diversity. Watch Voice of the Global South at these times on DD India.
Which way is the Russia-Ukraine war heading? Has it reached a stalemate? Watch Connecting the Dots at these times, only on DD India.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time.